Masters of the Universe hits theaters this week and is very divisive online. Some have criticized this film for being a woke nightmare or having bad acting and bad dialogue, but the scores on Rotten Tomatoes indicate pretty good reviews from both audiences and critics. I had the pleasure of seeing this film this past Thursday, so which is it? Well, grab your popcorn and let's dive into Masters of the Universe. My background with He-Man is relatively extensive. I was not alive when the original show came out in the 80s, but I did watch it from a very young age with my dad because he liked showing me the cartoons that he grew up on. I also enjoyed the reboot that they came out with a couple years back, and I have enjoyed other He-Man media, even the very campy 80s film, which I wouldn't say is a good film by any means, but I did enjoy it. So, with that context, let's dive right into the plot of this film. So, on a general level, the plot to this film has been done before. It's been done in the original show, it's been done in the reboot of the show. Apparently, there was a show that was a sequel to the original show that I hadn't seen, so it was probably done in that as well. But it is essentially just Skeletor is trying to take over Castle Grayskull so he can have the power of the He-Man sword, right? So this has all been done before. It's pretty safe for a Masters of the Universe movie, and it works. I enjoyed it. It was pretty successful in keeping me entertained, as I enjoyed this plot in the shows that I've seen it in, and I enjoyed it in the comics, the minimal amount of comics that I've read about He-Man. So it's just a very straightforward plot and very simple overall. The movie does repeat a plot point from the older 1980s movie where you have Adam stuck on Earth for not even 20 minutes in this movie. I would say they get through that pretty quickly. One of the complaints that a lot of people had with the previous movie, myself included, was like, why are we spending so much time on Earth, and it was kind of underdeveloped. This movie gets you off of Earth and onto Eternia very quickly, so that's one thing that I appreciated about this film, is that the sections on Earth are pretty quick. And for me, some of the sections on Earth and the little bits that they do work and others don't. There's a bit about like corporate offices and how He-Man is in an office on Earth and he's just Adam and he's doing like this therapy kind of thing that I thought was kind of weird. I didn't really like that direction they took his character on Earth, at least for that part of the film. There's another part that they go in on Earth where it's looking at the gym, and kind of this example is the gym as hypermasculinity, which I think works because it contributes to the overall themes of the whole film. So the gym parts on Earth I really enjoyed, and the stuff in the office I didn't really like, especially because I thought the actress who played Adam's boss on the office scenes, I thought she was just really annoying. I couldn't stand her. None of the jokes worked, at least for the office portion of being on Earth. Adam also has this roommate that's like really funny. I thought the jokes with him worked and everything around that worked, and some of the fish out of water comedy on Earth like kind of worked. It reminded me a lot of the first Thor movie, whereas in general I feel that the first Thor movie is a serviceable entertainment of a movie. It's not anything crazy, and I kind of felt that way about the Earth parts of this film, as it's serviceable fish out of water entertainment, and about half of the jokes landed for me, give or take. Again, I was not a fan of the stuff in The Office. I thought that was ridiculous, and I actually thought the fish out of water comedy later in the film, where he talks about the stuff he learned on Earth in Eternia and tries to tell some of the characters in Eternia what a bench press is, I thought that was way funnier than the stuff that he had done on Earth, where he's trying to tell the Earth characters about Eternia. The plot is very heavy-handed on its messaging. I think it's a little bit too overt. I don't mind it too much because, again, I really enjoyed this film and it was really entertaining. But a lot of people are complaining, as I alluded to in the intro, about the wokeness of this film and how it's all about, like, oh, men can cry, and it's about the character of He-Man representing something that they didn't like, that they didn't imagine He-Man was. And I think they're missing the point of the original show. Like, Prince Adam has always been someone who is kind, who is compassionate, who is caring, who doesn't have to conform to these ultra macho stereotypes of He-Man, even in the original show. And they do that and dial that up to like 10 in this movie. And I enjoyed it. I thought that the messaging was overt, but reliable theme of what it means to be a man. And actually, there's a lot of mirror images in this film with Man-at-Arms' character, which I'll talk about later in the character section of this review, in that he is learning how to be a father, not just a man, but a good father to Teela. And that was really compelling to me. And Adam's arc of how he handles masculinity, how when he can't be He-Man, he has to embrace his vulnerability and his emotions. Like, yes, it's really heavy-handed in this film. They do it with really overt dialogue, but I thought that was a really good message that we should be conveying to everyone watching the film and to lots of young boys who are getting into He-Man through this film about you don't have to be this hyper-masculine, toxic macho man to embody what it means to be masculine. And again, although it was very overt in this film, I don't really understand what the people who think it's too woke are complaining about, because that was present in the initial film. But again, the filmmakers in this movie have to explain it directly because people's attention spans have been killed by TikTok, which kind of brings down the plot a little bit for me. And then at the end of the film, you have a character who is notably absent from the movie. He comes out and shows up just to say, hey, I'm in this film, and then he directly tells you what the message is supposed to be. Like, he literally says, hey guys, so in today's movie, we learned that being masculine doesn't always mean having muscles, and sometimes men have to show emotions too, which pulled me out of the film. I thought that was totally ridiculous, and like, why are we telling, not showing? Like, you did a great job at showing this theme throughout the entire film. You had me on board, and then at the end of the film, I just crashed. Like, that is not a great thing to do in a movie, is have this character just exposit essentially what you're supposed to get out of the film. With that being said, there are really 3 post-credit scenes in this film. The first one happens before the credits. It's like a pre-credit scene. And that's the scene I really took issue with that I just talked about, where they have a character show up and it's like, hey, I'm in the movie, like, I'm a big part of the show, but I was not in this movie at all. But I'm here to tell you that I exist and directly repeat to you the themes of this film. And to me, that did not work at all. The second post-credit scene, or the first post-credit scene, but the second scene that's after the film, really works for me. That is a must-stay. Like, you gotta see that because it brings another character back and teases a sequel. It's really great. And then the final post-credit scene also teases a sequel, but it's something that has been done in the show before. If you've seen the show, you know exactly where the second post-credit scene is going. So for me, that was a fun post-credit scene, but the big one is the mid-credit scene. Overall, I think this film's plot is pretty safe. It's pretty generic. It's been done before in the He-Man shows, and it definitely is very overt with its messaging, some of which I didn't find that bad, but the character at the end really took me out and really detracted from my enjoyment of the film. It's a little inconsistent, so I'm gonna have to give this film's plot a 3 out of 5 stars. Still enjoyable, safe, but nothing crazy. For the characters in this film, I'm gonna start off by saying this. Jared Leto is a bad person. He has been in a lot of bad movies, and he is not someone who I generally support. However, that being said, Skeletor in this movie is fantastic. One thing that everyone agrees on from all of the things that I've read online before making this video is that Skeletor is one of, if not the best parts of this movie. Jared Leto delivers one of the best performances of his career here. He brings the animated character to the big screen to life by making him more intimidating and still having that goofiness, this sassiness that Skeletor has in the animated show. They don't get rid of any Skeletor's quips or sassiness or jokes that he has in the animated show, but they give him this deep voice to make him have a little more gravitas and fit the tone of live action better. You can get away with a silly high-pitched voice in animation, but the deep voice really solidifies the performance in this film. It just adds so much ambiance to Skeletor. It makes him someone who is intimidating and makes you believe that his forces would follow him, even though he's this ridiculous, goofy guy with a skull for a face. So Skeletor is great in this movie and is one of the highlights. Another thing I briefly alluded to earlier in this review is that Man-at-Arms is amazing in this movie. The opening scene establishes Man-at-Arms as this dominant fighter, and he has a really cool action scene, but he loses to this one character, and that haunts him for the rest of the film, and you can see that arc carry through the entire film until eventually he is able to come face to face with that character again. Now, I won't spoil the outcome of that fight in this film, but it's central to his arc and how Man-at-Arms is developed throughout the film. Man-at-Arms is also struggling to be a good father figure to Teela, and that is central to the film's plot about what masculinity should be and how you can be a good man and a good father to your children or those around you. And Man-at-Arms really embodies that. He's struggling to relate to Teela. He's struggling to take care of her and bring her to the role that she needs to be in, and he needs to fill that father role, but because of his grief, his loss, his depression, he is not able to properly be the father figure that he needs to be. And he has conversations with Adam throughout the film that really are interesting to me, and it really makes a lot of sense what they do with his character. He's dealing with grief, and because of his grief and the way that he processes his emotions, he's not able to be there for his daughter. And Adam coming into his life again at this point in his life where he's stricken by grief, these two characters build each other up. They both work, and Man-at-Arms' arc improves Adam's arc, and Adam's arc improves Man-at-Arms' arc. So both of them work really well in this film. Cringer, or Battle Cat, is in this film towards the end. There's not a whole lot of him, so he definitely is not a huge part in this movie. And if you're a big Battle Cat fan or a big Cringer fan, then you might be a little bit disappointed with the amount of screen time he gets, but I think what he gets is worth it, and he has some really heroic moments at the end that work. Also, Evil Lynn in this film exists. She kind of really doesn't do anything until the final battle. I think that she needed to do a little bit more. In the original show, she had fights with the characters. She's kind of this deterrent, this enforcer that basically does Skeletor's work for him and battles these main characters and provides an obstacle for them in the original show. But she doesn't do that in this film. She just kind of heeds to every whim of Skeletor, and she doesn't really fight at all. You don't really get a lot of action with her until the very end. So I think that she needed to be a little bit more present in the movie, but other than that, I thought it was fine. As I mentioned earlier, there are two fan favorite characters who are not in the main plot of this film. Both of them show up in post-credit scenes. At least for me, I'm trying to think of any other characters from the original show that are major and not in this movie. I can't really think of any. They did a really great job at bringing all of the characters from the animated show to life in this live-action version of the He-Man story. Overall, I thought the characters were really great in this film, especially Man-at-Arms and Skeletor. But once again, it's not like any crazy character work. I wasn't wowed like these are the best characters ever, and they're just adapting characters that already exist. So for that reason, I'm going to have to go 4 out of 5 stars on the characters. The pacing of this film is good. Thinking back to the film I reviewed last week, Pressure creates this sense of anticipation and you're on the edge of your seat the whole time, and that is like perfectly paced. This film, you don't really feel any urgency, you don't feel that sense of anticipation, but a lot of people were complaining that it was too long, and I did not feel that way. So the film is 2 hours and 10 minutes, so really you're going to be in the theater for 3 hours with previews and credits and all that. I got out of the movie theater at 7 o'clock and my showtime was 4:20, but I did not feel that anything was too long. I actually was like, where did the time go? Like, that movie did not feel that long, so I actually really enjoyed the pacing of this film. While I didn't think it was like anything that kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time, filled me with anticipation, the complaints about the movie being too long is not something that I felt when watching the movie. I thought it was the perfect length and that everything was really great. One of the things that I liked about this film is that the Earth scenes are only about 20 minutes, and you get off of Earth quickly so you can get into the Eternia action, which is really what you're here to see the film for. So overall, I thought the pacing of this film was really good. I would give it a 4 stars out of 5 on the pacing front. So I would say the visuals in this film are hit or miss. If you like goofy 80s action slow-mo type visuals, which is perfect for a He-Man movie in my opinion, then the visuals in this film are great, the fight scenes are great, the action's great, it's action-packed. The visuals in Eternia look pretty good for the most part. There are some scenes where you can clearly tell it's CGI and it's a little bit sloppy, but most of Eternia looks really good. The scenes in Earth are just a standard metro area, so that's nothing crazy. But really, you can see in the opening scene the vibrance of what Eternia is supposed to look like, and it just looks great. The opening scene is pre-Skeletor, it hasn't been destroyed yet, and then when you get back to Eternia, it's this bleak wasteland, so it's a little hard to showcase how great Eternia is supposed to look when they're doing it on purpose, because Skeletor has desolated the entire land. But there are still some really fun and neat visuals. I like the fancy ships, the creatures of Eternia all look great. So I think the visuals are pretty good overall. However, there are some clear instances of bad CGI, and it's clunky and goofy. If you're not into that, you probably wouldn't be a fan of most of the visuals in this film. Now, I don't have a section in my review for music, but we gotta talk about the music in this movie because the soundtrack is great. It's so He-Man, so 80s, and they got Brian May from Queen to do most of it, and it pays off a little gag earlier in the film where they refer to He-Man as Highlander, and of course, he has a lot of similarities with Highlander, so that joke makes a lot of sense. But Queen did the soundtrack for Highlander, and now you get Brian May, who's part of Queen, to come and do the soundtrack for your He-Man movie, and it's absolutely perfect. There's another guy who's composing and does like more of the instrumental stuff, which I think also works really well, but I really like the electric guitar that Brian May provides to this soundtrack. There's also some Queen that is in the soundtrack in a really important moment in the film, and it's really great. Like, I love hearing Queen in movies, and it really fits in this film, especially with the Highlander references. So the music in this film is also great. So I'll add that as a tagline to the kind of end of the visual section of this review, but it doesn't affect my score of the visuals that I'm about to give you. The visuals in this film are a mixed bag, as I said earlier, so I think a 3.5 out of 5 stars is appropriate. I enjoyed it. I'm adding a little bit more to the neutral score of 2.5 stars for visuals because I'm a He-Man fan and I understand that they're supposed to be campy, they're supposed to be super 80s and He-Man-like, but if you are not a fan of He-Man or have never seen He-Man before, you might be like, what are we doing? This looks kind of awkward. So overall, that's what I would say about the visuals in this film. For the entertainment value this film provides, I had a blast. If you saw my out of the theater reaction short, you would know that I was smiling ear to ear after I came out of the theater from this movie, because I just really had a great time with it. But I am a He-Man fan and someone who enjoys the franchise. If you are not a He-Man fan, then probably should take everything I say with a grain of salt, because you might come out of this movie thinking, what did I just watch? Like, that was utterly ridiculous. There are a few things that drew me out of the film. I already talked about the very overt messaging in this movie, but another thing is that the dialogue in this film is bad. Some of it is bad. It is objectively goofy to try and achieve the purpose that it is going for, which is recreating the 80s He-Man feel. There's a line in this film, it goes something like, why would Skeletor do that? Because he's bad. It's very flat, and the dialogue just does not work on some levels. It's pulled me out of the film. And again, some of the jokes did not work. I'll talk here a little bit about the humor in this film. It's very vulgar and a lot of innuendo-based humor. If you're an older He-Man fan, you're probably going to laugh at that. If you're taking your kid to be introduced to He-Man, like, these jokes are going to fly right over their head, and they're not going to laugh at most of the jokes in the film. And I personally thought the movie was fairly funny. I laughed at some of the jokes involving the characters named Fisto and Ram Man, but it definitely is a little bit juvenile and innuendo-based humor throughout the entire film. So a lot of the jokes are hit or miss depending on the style of humor that you like. So if you're someone who does not like that humor, then you might come out of this film thinking that was really bad, or that I just did not enjoy that. So take everything that I say here with that in mind. Overall, because I really enjoyed the film, I would give it a 4.5 stars on the entertainment scale. But if you are not a He-Man fan, or just think that juvenile humor and innuendos make a film like significantly worse, which there are some people I know that really don't like that style of humor, I would drop 1 to 1.5 stars, so you're landing at around a 3-star on the entertainment value. Overall, I tried to be as objective as possible in this review as a He-Man fan, but I did give you a lean towards the people who are He-Man fans will enjoy this movie more. If you are not a He-Man fan or have never heard of the character, maybe sit this one out or wait till streaming. But if you are a He-Man fan, definitely go see this movie in theaters. It is amazing and represents everything that you would want from a He-Man film. Some parts of this movie did draw me out, so I did mention those in the review, and they will be reflected in my final score, like some of the overt messaging, some of the dialogue, some of the jokes didn't land. But I had a really great time with this movie, so it lands at barely a 3.5 stars, edging on 4 overall, and my personal score as a He-Man fan for this film is 7.5 out of 10. Take that with a grain of salt. If you're not a He-Man fan, maybe subtract 2 points or a star from what I gave this movie. If you enjoyed this review and want to see more of my content, you can click on one of these videos around here, and remember to subscribe and leave me a like and a comment about what you thought of Masters of the Universe in theaters this weekend. And remember, keep consuming media so that I can keep covering it.